tonight because it's my story. I'm so grateful to be in the room on election night with all you amazing, strong women. I know you're amazing. You're strong because you're here because you care about collaborating with women. And that's what I built my business on. Not only that, I'm happy you're having a glass of wine with me. There is an open credit card with a candle. I wasn't supposed to tell anybody, according to the bartender, I said, oh, what the heck. We just had a wedding, and it's like, at that point, let's just
Sarah, can we put that closer to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't have a strained voice.
I do have a straight voice. Why don't I do this?
Whispering sound good too.
And if you really want the story of motherhood is invite me to talk about being the wedding planner and the mother of the bride, because it was not pretty. So, 5 years ago today, and I believe it was either November 7th or 8th, I stood here and said, all right, it's 8 o'clock, we need to go home, and we need to have one more glass of wine because we are going to celebrate the first woman president elected to the United States of America. That was at 8 o'clock. At 9 o'clock in my pajamas, I remember kneeling down, praying to my dead mother, who was a liberal Democrat, and with my rosary. Mom had her white fur coat on. Mom. So, here we are, 5 years later. No, did we figure that out? However many years ago that was. So I believe that we are all here for a reason, here on this earth. And I have never questioned my purpose in life, which I know is a gift. But I know I am here to serve. Now that has a lot of different variations on the same theme, but I connected the dots. I was very lucky that I figured out how to connect the dots. And this is tonight what my story is about so far. Hope it keeps going. I was born and raised in Southern California, La Jolla, with four sisters and a brother. And my mother was a very, very strong woman. Did not get to teach. Well, she was a teacher, but then my father became a doctor, and she was at home. Regretted her whole life that she did not take a paying job. However, the most important part in our family that we were raised to believe was twofold: education. And when you think about things you're saving for your children, education has always been paramount. That nothing matters more than education. And I remember having a fight with my husband about, we lived in a fabulous town, Brookline, where they have fabulous public schools, but I went to girls' school, he went to boys' school, and it was 2008, and we really couldn't afford private school, but girls' school, and I said, we can move. It's not about the house. And I think that's my phone because I'm not technologically savvy to turn it off. You can just turn that off. So being the middle child, with 3 older sisters, 3 very different older sisters. One was she thinks she's Rose Kennedy, but she was just in charge. No one really followed her in charge. My other sister actually did not come to my daughter's wedding because my daughter being a healthcare professional at Children's, we asked that people were vaccinated. She chose not to be vaccinated. That's okay, but she didn't come. And my sister above me went to Harvard. So just figure all these not that mother's our favorite child, but my sister Meg was her favorite. So being in the middle, I had to figure out how to, and I have a little brother and a little sister, how to entertain myself. And I really did that through growing up by sewing, and I brought a prop. This is my very first sewing machine. 4 years old, and you hand turn it, and then I have a singer sewing, touch and sew, and the story goes on. So I loved to sew, and all of my money from babysitting went to sewing and buying fabric, not just sewing, to buying fabric to sew. So, speed along here, and I moved along through college, design student, didn't want to pinpoint myself to any kind of design, but loved liberal arts, went to UC Davis, and after college, I was in a San Diego gallery, and I met my mentor, and it's especially special for you all to notice Karita Kent. Karita painted the gas tank over the expressway herself. Her artwork is hers. And she's an educator and an activist, artist, educator, and activist. And she is I could spend the night talking about Karita, and I would love to do that sometime, but I won't tonight. But this was a pivot moment in my life, because when I came to Boston to go to grad school at Wellesley for art education, I had to get away from the West Coast. I was born and raised there, and I met her again after meeting her in an art gallery in San Diego. And you have to know her story, but she left the convent. She was in the convent at age 18 because it was a sensible place to go if you're a young woman in Iowa. It was your avenue for livelihood. And in her 50s, she made the brave act of leaving the convent. And if any of you who are old as I am, know that it was a very rebellious time with the Vietnam War and the Paragons and all kinds of stuff happening. But she left the convent where she was supported. Now think about this. She never had a job. She was a teacher, but she wasn't paid. And she came to Boston and she became a self-supported artist. And by doing commission artwork and prints, and she had already been very well recognized for her serigraphs across the country. Did the Vatican, she did the Vatican Pavilion at the World's Fair. She did lots of amazing, huge art. She did the biggest pieces of art, which is the gas tank, and the smallest piece of art, which I carried to the post office, which is the rainbow stamp. So she was pretty amazing, and I knew I was there in my life to be a sponge. I just sponged off of her everything I could learn. So during this process in my 20s, and I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any money. My parents were getting divorced. My dad had another woman. My mother was sobbing hysterically. Things were not good. But I was on the East Coast, and I was single, and I got into teaching a little bit of art, but I really recognized that I didn't love the teaching as much to the kids, but I wanted to teach on a broader level. And I went to Mass Art, of which I was denied entry because I'm not a good illustrator. And I was at textiles, and in my UC Davis years, I had gotten into, I asked another prop, wearable art. So, what is wearable art? It's one-of-a-kind inspired clothing. And I sell it on consignment in art galleries, which is, you never know when you're going to sell it, and you never know when you're going to get paid. So I rented my apartment. I was a very smart little cookie. I was the first VRBO. 1986. Rented my apartment to my neighbors whose parents were visiting them in Cambridge, and they'd take it for a week, and that paid my month's rent. Good thing I had friends I could stay at. However, when I went to Mass Art, Karita volunteered to, I was denied Mass Art, and she said, call them up and ask them, what if I tutor you? I go, okay, I would call them up and ask them, what if Karita tutors me? Like, oh, sure, come. So I have on tape those tutorials, which I need to give over to the institution for historical papers. But at this point was the beginning of my business. I had no roadmap, I had no plan, and I had no money. I learned those years of an empty refrigerator, worried, worry. You all know what worry is. I learned through this period the power and the art of prayer, of spirituality, of the importance of service. And I mean service like help me be in the place I'm supposed to be. And that's where I say spirituality and prayer were my guide. And I'm not, an advocate of any particular religion, although I am a Catholic, but I am a believer in faith, and I guess one way to say it is follow your gut, because that is what is my gasoline. When I talk about service, I say to everyone in my team, my office, that we're here to service our community, each other, and our customers. And you have to remember, if you're in business, everyone, or if you're not in business, if you're a mother, your children are your customers. You're there to listen to them. You're there everywhere you go. It's about listening and learning and giving back. And it's a really delicate art, and it's one that we all aspire to, I know, every day, but it is truly a fine line of going off rail. So in the process of wearable art, and then I moved on to, I had to figure this out sensibly, like a lemonade stand. I can't wait for consignment, I have to sell my clothes. I landed at Papagallo, Newberry Street, first account, manufactured in Fall River. I moved this stuff out of my house where the smoke, wood burning stoves smelled up my clothes that I was sewing in the apartment. I had to hang them out on the porch to air. It's all true. It's just like, I always smell. And I can't sell smelly clothes. But to really fast forward, I went from sewing to one of a kind to, in the next 10 years, maybe not that many years, 6 years, up to 20,000 units a week in Fall River and New Bedford. And the way that happened is I got involved with Talbot's. At that point, I was still doing specialty stores, but I grew as they grew as a vendor, serving them. And that went on for 30 plus years. I was an outside vendor. I had all kinds of other accounts like Laura Ashley, Coldwater Creek, Nordstrom's, Freeport Studio, all these places that many of you have not heard of because it was the days of the mail order catalog. But what I really loved was this concept of creating jobs in Fall River and New Bedford, and if you've been there, it's just like a really good feeling, in creating jobs in my office. And it wasn't about making the money, although I was happy at this point I could pay the rent. But I was still designing for other retailers. And now I have a question. When you put on a piece of new clothing, you're in the dressing room at a store, what is the most critical question you ask yourself about whether you're going to spend your money on that piece of clothing? And I just want you guys to throw out some words, and then I'm going to tell you what my word is.
I can get it over my head.
Okay. Good to know. Always have a zipper.
Versatility.
Timeless.
Fit.
Wait, you guys got it there. Here it is. Versatility. If it makes you feel more like yourself.
Sexiness.
Sexiness, then you're going to have to act on that. I've been married 32 years, so.
How it makes you feel. You feel fabulous in it, right?
Okay.
That's
Bingo.
That confidence.
But, so how it makes you feel, which to me is, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, if it's something, like a work suit, can I use it as armor?
Or, can I be behind it?
Wow,
It always looks
you're a
great because
force.
I'm afraid. Quality.
Oh, yes, I don't think you look at quality out of the box. That's when you get to the registry. Okay, well, these are all really, I know Erica or somebody's taking notes on this because these are all really important bullet points. I will introduce you to them in a minute. But my really big listen to your gut is I love to make people happy. And this is what makes me so happy about being in retail is I get to connect with people. And when I was in wholesale, I was treated like a second-class citizen. Not intentionally, that was the nature of the business, but we were vendors. And we provided the architectural drawings and then they gutted them and I was there to make them happen after they ruined my beautiful design. But I wanted to support myself by being creative, so I was happily employed in my own business doing this. And that went on for a very long time. And there are lots of ways to make people happy, which I also had the experience of learning. Lots of twists and turns through this course of my career. Let's just say I incorporated in 1985. I was 25 years old. In 1999, we had a family member working for me as the finance controller, and there was a $2.5 million embezzlement. When I tell you we had lost everything in our bank accounts, we did. Back to prayer. I'm in a boat, and my 2 kids, little girls, are healthy, and my husband we still like each other. Okay, we'll figure it out. We figured it out. Unfortunately, I did have to, in honor of my employees, had to prosecute and put him in jail, and he is since out. He is a relative. But, and then, a whole nother day could be about forgiveness, but we're not going to go there. But these are learning points that you don't plan, and the reason I'm telling you this is back to following your gut, and you know when it's not time to give up. Whatever you're doing, and fortunately I don't have to face that in a marriage, but I've had to face it with a bankruptcy lawyer who was convinced I should go do something else, and I looked at her like, first of all, why am I paying you to tell me to give up? Second of all, because I had no money, of course. Second of all, this is what I do. This is what I do. So I'm giving up. I got into retail because of this journey. And yet again, I had to figure out how are we going to pay rent. We went from 20 million to 2 million in 2008. Talbots, we shipped our last order. They went vertical. All of my stores that I had big volume with went vertical after we were required to give them all of our resources, our factories, our vendors, our fabrics, our da-da-da-da-da, but, I wasn't big enough to challenge them. But the core of starting a retail store meant that we could be closer to our customer, and we could be in charge for once. We could be in charge. And that is back to making people happy. I actually finally got to deliver the kind of happiness and kindness that I had wanted to do for so long. So, being a homebody, a control freak, I move my furniture around a lot. We have our stores set up like their little living rooms because we want you to come in and hang out, chit chat, have some candy. There's hidden wine in the back. There's water, there's cookies, there's food. We don't want people to feel pressured to buy. And this is why I hated home shows. I just hated going to my girlfriends who's had the home shows. Like, the living room is a little too stressful for me. So that's why we created the little living rooms within our stores, and you can see that on Chestnut Street. We continued to start now a chain of retail. Now we're 2012. Need to get some investors. One of them went awry, sued me because I thought we had settled the deal. She said it was just a loan. Fast forward, I had to sell my backyard garden, which was a second lot in Brookline. And I was sick to my stomach. I mean, I still look out there and there's a house there. I'm like, hi. Fortunately, I love the woman who bought it, and she got to have a house and had to send her kids to Brookline schools. But, gratitude, keep coming back to these little pinpoints. As my girlfriend said, well, aren't you lucky you had a lot to sell? Bingo. So, and our taxes went down, obviously. So, as we figured our way through retail, we got up to 25 stores. Very calculated, planned, east of the Mississippi, within a 2-hour flight, car drive. Had to have a connection there. We went to Michigan. My family's from Michigan. We went to Nantucket. We went to Resort. We went to, obviously, urban Massachusetts, Resort, Massachusetts. We slowly found our way into Florida because Resort. But always part of this core mission was staying, and has been staying, except for that horrible, which I'm not going to get into, but there was a pocket of time where I was on QVC, and it wasn't the mop. Well, if you've ever been on QVC, there's a lot wrong with QVC. 2 in the morning, when your little kids are at home, it was horrible. It was horrible. Even though I was there during the days of Joan Rivers. No, she's horrible, but her green room was right next to my black room. And anyway, it was an adventure. It was an adventure, and the reason I'm telling you this is that one of my senior leaders at Talbot's, he was an executive vice president, if not the vice president, suggested to me, why don't we do a little friends and family round? And he just believed in me, and he is just an amazing human being. And we raised a little bit of money, and we were able to sustain ourselves to the 25 stores. I think we raised $500,000, and that was all beautiful and wonderful until March 17th, 2020. And people kept advising me about, you've got to go on the internet. I'm like, I don't really want to go on the internet. I hate shopping on the internet. I push the wrong buttons. My credit card, I hate it. And then I would lay out all the horrible stores I had to shop on for my daughters. My Teresa, Revolve, the Farfetch, and it just goes on and on. And the return policies and da-da-da. It was just I hated retail. E-commerce. And there was 2 other problems. I could not figure out how you're going to buy my clothes if you can't feel and touch them. Because that, to me, our fabrics are all imported. The craftsmanship from my still thriving Italian pattern maker of 32 years. She thinks we're Chanel. We're not. She makes a garment as if it's Chanel. We're still fighting about it. Maria Rosa. You don't need all those extra stitches. And you pay for the factory work by a stitch. So I was not in favor of e-commerce. I kept being pushed. Like, no, I'm not ready yet. And I am technologically challenged. And so I really wasn't even ready to have a conversation. March 20th came, and the team behind me, my marketing team at the time, and our employees are just loyalists. They're family, and 3 of them put together a platform on e-commerce On March 26th, we got it open. They got it open. I stood there and rang the bell. And I watched the sales. And it was an amazing experience because we had amazingly loyal customers. And it was honestly the biggest achievement that our company has made. It was the biggest fear I ever had. It is unknown territory to me. It's still unknown territory to me. It's a learning day every single day. We're a year and a half into it, if you can believe that. It is our biggest store. There's so much opportunity. However, I don't want it to be about people I don't know. I want it to be about people we have relationships with. And so we don't Google ad, because I'm not throwing mud on the wall and like somebody sticks, maybe they'll buy something. That's not the kind of business we run. We're not a commodity. We have small collections of limited, 100, 150 of a style. If you think about that in 20 styles, and then you have 20 stores, and then you throw the internet on, I don't want people to walk in and say, oh, I have the same dress. I mean, maybe once in a while that happens if I'm there with the same dress, because, I took it off the sample rack. But it's really important to me to still have that boutique essence within our stores. And honestly, the way we achieve it is through our amazing managers. And if you haven't met Erica, stand up. Erica has been running. She's now in a larger position. She's running Wellesley and overseeing 3 stores, Concord, Wellesley, and Charles Street. And our fabulous new Lauren, who has the most beautiful accent. You will fall in love with her even if she says, "What?" Lauren is just your accent is Scottish. Wales. And I told her I went to Wales to learn smocking. It's just so fun to build these relationships, and it's really the magic of the day. So to tell you where we are, how we have elevated through COVID. COVID was clearly the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. Not because of fear, because of logistics of managing so many parts to the wheel. We had things that were in production that were in the needle. We had fabric ready to ship. We had, spring is our biggest season. It stopped, and we had to figure it out, and we had to figure out landlord relationships, which was really difficult, really difficult. And yet, here we are. Naples has been devastated from the last hurricane. It's only a store. I know it's only a store. It's people's livelihood, though. We take care of them as long as we can. It's going to be back up and running shortly. But one of my questions that I was asked about what is the hardest thing I face right now in my business, and I will be quite honest with you, it's managing people, keeping them happy. The government and Massachusetts especially, not just Massachusetts, we've had some really rough situations where lawsuits come up, workman's comp, and it's really hard to be a perfect boss, I guess is what I'm saying. If there's an injury from way back when and that employee is now working for you, you're responsible for that injury from way back when because she's now under your watch or he's under your watch. And that was a $200,000 workman's comp settlement for moving hangers for somebody. And I mean, there's just so many, this whole, which I'm an advocate for, but on the website, accessibility, we've been sued twice, both by men, for not being able to order a dress on the website, and we're facing, size issues. I mean, I'm not discriminating against any size. I just, if somebody wants to fund, 0 to 85, in sizing. I mean, I'm happy to do it. I just only have so much money on the till. The problem is that so many laws are written to cover. Let me just go backwards here for a second. I am a very devoted Democrat. I am a liberal here, and it's really hard to make sure that you're covered in every situation. That is, you're doing your best for your employees. Our Florida insurance doesn't cover one thing for the $100,000 of the, you know what? Because is it wind? Is it water? Is it mold? Did somebody walk into the building who smelled mold, so now she can sue me because she smelled mold because now she has a headache? I mean, I'm not being negative, Sue, but it's really difficult to watch the line of perfection, and that's not why I started my business. I love people. I don't want to be angry. I really don't want to be angry about these stupid little situations that arise, and it's not like we're a global, we're a small business still, and it's just, as a small business in Massachusetts, it is painfully difficult to get the support of the state to give us any kind of break. My building it's on Opioid Alley where my corporate headquarters is. It's a beautiful building. But the taxes I pay as a renter far exceed a very large construction company who had an arrangement with the mayor for their building, which is brand new or relatively new. And you can only fight so many fights, and life is not fair, and I don't want to get into that, but I would just say my hardest challenge is to manage and run a small business with the barriers we're facing. I say Massachusetts, but with women and equality and not slighting anyone, and not calling a meeting on someone's holiday that's not your holiday, so now they take back to HR. It's like, I didn't know it was her holiday, I'm not Muslim. It's just, it's really, and I think this younger generation, and forgive all of you, my group, who are in here today, and I'm going to sound like a really old bitch, and I'm sorry. But I am really pleading that you all learn how important and it is to come back into the workforce, in your office, in your store, in your community, because staying in your kitchen, yes, it's wonderful for a little bit, but you're not giving, you're not learning, you're not being mentored, you're not making friendships. You can't make a friend over Zoom, for God's sakes. And I feel the entitlement growing, and I have 2 children I'm speaking about, 2. I'm not keeping them out of it. I'm really hoping the pendulum swings, because it's so important for our kids. Manners at the coffee pot, manners in the bathroom. I mean, this is where you learn them if you didn't learn them at home, and it's not happening. And 5:30, work-life balance. Gotta go. Could you finish cleaning up the bad work, please? So as I started this conversation, and I will end it, this is my story so far. I'm open to any questions. But I want to say that the reason I'm still doing this, and the reason I love it so much, is because I haven't spoken to the product at all, but I love making the product. And I love seeing it on our customers, my customers, you all in this room. I love the people part of this business. And I love sharing stories that we can never give up. Do what you want to do. And you're going to hit obstacles. Hit obstacles. It's only an obstacle, and it's under operation. We've done so many different events, but I love learning about those events and the people behind those events and why it's important to them, which is important to you. And that's what pulls us together. So, thank you.